I remember the exact moment I realized I'd wasted 14 years. It wasn't in some grand, cinematic way. It wasn't during an argument or a confrontation. It was on a Tuesday morning in August, and it happened in about 3 seconds. I was standing at the reception desk of Meridian and Associates, my husband's architectural firm, the one he'd built from nothing. I'd been there countless times before. Board meetings, holiday parties, picking him up when his car was in the shop. Nothing unusual. Nothing that should have triggered what came next. The intern was new. I'd never seen her before. She was probably 23, maybe 24. The kind of effortlessly beautiful that makes you stop calculating the math of your own aging. She was walking toward me with a coffee cup, distracted, on her phone, wearing one of those oversized blazers that somehow cost $300. She wasn't watching where she was going. The coffee, hot, dark, definitely not decaf, hit my cream-colored silk blouse like a weapon. It spread across my chest in seconds. I stood there, frozen, while it soaked through the fabric and burned against my skin. "Oh my God," she said, barely looking at me. "I'm so sorry." But that's not what broke something inside me. It was what she said next. She said it to someone on her phone, the person she was actually focused on, someone she was walking toward while texting with her other hand, balancing that coffee with casual disregard for literally everyone around her. "Yeah, I just bumped into some random woman," she said into the phone, laughing. "I'm heading to Marcus's office now. He's going to take me to lunch." Marcus. My husband's name is Marcus. And then she said something that froze the blood in my veins. "Yeah, when we got back from the Hamptons last weekend." I didn't let her finish. I just stood there, coffee dripping down my body, and I heard myself ask, "Excuse me, where are you going?" She finally looked at me, actually looked at me, and I saw it happen in real time. The moment she recognized me from the photos on Marcus's desk, the moment she understood what I was. She started, but I was already moving. I didn't walk to Marcus's office. I walked to reception, picked up the phone, and I did something that 14 years of marriage hadn't prepared me for. I called my husband and said 4 words that changed everything. "Come meet her. Now." To understand what happened next, you need to understand what came before. Not because my marriage was perfect. It wasn't. But because that's what makes betrayal so specific. It's not the absence of love that destroys you. It's the presence of it. It's everything you believed was real, suddenly revealed as performance. I met Marcus in law school. He was in architecture, I was in corporate law. We met at a party thrown by mutual friends in someone's terrible apartment in Brooklyn. He was arguing, passionately, almost angrily, about sustainable building practices with a guy who frankly didn't care. But Marcus cared. You could see it in him, that kind of uncompromising passion for doing things the right way. I was attracted to that. I was attracted to someone who couldn't turn it off, who cared too much about everything. We dated for 3 years. Those were good years, not perfect. We fought about money early on. He wanted to start his own firm. I wanted stability. We compromised. He built the firm slowly, carefully. I made partner at my law practice. We bought an apartment in Brooklyn, then a house. Then, after 7 years of dating, he proposed. The wedding was beautiful. My mother cried. His mother cried. We wrote our own vows. God, the vows. I remember standing there reading about forever and partnership and building a life together. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment everything becomes real. The first 5 years of marriage were fine. Better than fine sometimes. We traveled. We renovated the house. We had a rhythm. He'd stay at the office late. Always. Architecture means you're competing for every contract, every vision. You work until you can't anymore. I understood that. I respected it. Around year 7, things shifted. Not dramatically. Slowly. In ways you don't notice until they've already calcified into normal. He stopped coming home for dinner. He started taking calls during our weekends. He'd disappear for hours on Sundays, saying he was thinking through a design problem. I asked him if there was someone else. He laughed, genuinely laughed, and said that was insane, that he loved me, that I was paranoid, and maybe I was. Maybe that was just what marriage looked like after the initial intensity faded. Everyone said so. My friends with older marriages all described the same thing. The companionable distance, the parallel lives, the understanding that passion was a luxury of youth. So I accepted it. I accepted the lateness. I accepted the vagueness about where he'd been. I accepted the way his face would light up when his phone buzzed. That little spark of anticipation that I couldn't quite explain away. Year 8. I suggested therapy. He said therapy was for people with actual problems. We don't have problems, he said. We're just tired. Everyone's tired. Year 9. I caught him deleting his text messages. I asked him about it. He said it was just spam. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because the alternative was too big to hold in my mind. Year 10. I stopped asking questions. That was the real betrayal, I think. Not his. Mine. I betrayed myself by choosing not to know. Years 11 through 14. We became ghosts living in the same house, polite, functional, dead. So when the intern threw coffee on me, I'd been living with the absence of my marriage for 4 years already. I just hadn't admitted it. Come meet her. Now. I said it calmly. That surprised me. I thought I'd be angry, but I was just tired. So tired. What? His voice had that confused quality, the one he used when I asked him questions he didn't want to answer. I'm at your office. There's an intern here. She's waiting for you. She mentioned the Hamptons. Silence. Long enough that I could hear him breathing. Long enough to know. Sarah, what are you talking about? I'm at reception. She's standing right next to me. She has coffee all over her shirt now, too, actually. Long story. But here's the thing, Marcus. She seems to think you're going to take her to lunch. She also seems to think you took her to the Hamptons. Last weekend. The weekend you told me you were in Milwaukee for that hotel presentation. More silence. I'm coming down, he said finally. Great, I said. I'll wait. I hung up and looked at the intern, whose name I'd discovered was Jasmine, of course it was. And I said, he's on his way. She'd gone pale. Her phone had stopped being interesting. She kept glancing at the elevator, then at me, then away, like she couldn't quite land on the reality of what was happening. Is he... she started. Married? I finished. Yes, to me. I'm Sarah. I'm the woman in the photos on his desk, the one he says he loves, the one he's been married to for 14 years. She didn't say anything. What could she say? She was 23 years old and had just realized she was a cliché. I almost felt bad for her. The elevator opened. Marcus stepped out, and I watched his entire face rearrange itself as he took in the scene. Me, standing there with coffee stains spreading across my body like continents. Jasmine, looking like she might throw up. Reception staff pretending not to watch while completely watching. He looked at me first, then at Jasmine, then back at me. This isn't what it looks like, he said. I laughed. I actually laughed. It came out harsh, broken. Really? I said. Because it looks like you're having an affair with someone my daughter's age. It looks like you lied to me about where you were last weekend. It looks like you have been deleted text messages and taking calls in the bathroom and telling me I'm paranoid when I asked if something was going on. What does it actually look like, from your perspective? He didn't answer. He looked at Jasmine, and something passed between them. Some kind of communication, an understanding. They were a unit, I realized. They'd already built that between them. The shorthand, the inside knowledge, the way couples have of understanding each other without speaking. That was when it hit me. Not the affair itself, not the specific betrayal, but the realization that this wasn't new. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was something he'd constructed carefully, deliberately, over what I was beginning to understand might have been months. How long? I asked. He didn't say anything. How long, Marcus? 7 months, Jasmine said quietly. Since January. January. That was when I started asking questions. That was when I caught him deleting texts. That was when something inside me went cold, and I decided not to pursue it because the answer was too terrifying. I'd known. Some part of me had known the entire time, and I'd chosen not to know. That was the moment everything inside me broke. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything or demand answers or threaten consequences. I just stood there and looked at him. Really looked at him. And I understood that I didn't know this person at all. The person I'd married was someone who argued passionately about sustainable building practices. Someone who cared. Someone who couldn't turn it off. The person standing in front of me was someone who'd spent 7 months lying. Someone who'd calculated every moment. Someone who'd looked me in the face over 14 years and constructed an entire separate life. I'm going home, I said finally. I'm going to take a shower, and then I'm going to call my lawyer. Sarah, he started. Don't, I said. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Don't try to make this into something understandable. We both know it isn't. The walk to my car felt like walking through water. Everything was muffled. Everything was slow. I remember sitting in the driver's seat for a long time before I could make my hands turn the key. When I got home, I went straight upstairs to the shower and stood under the water until my skin turned red. I watched the coffee stains spiral down the drain, and I felt nothing. That was worse than any feeling would have been. My phone started ringing. Marcus. Then Marcus again. Then a text. Please, let me explain. I turned the phone off. I sat on the edge of my bed, our bed, and I made a list. Not an emotional list, a practical one, a lawyer list, the kind of list that comes from having spent 15 years in corporate law, understanding how to dismantle things systematically, account information, property division, timeline documentation, text message screenshots, thank God for cloud backups. The Hamptons Hotel confirmation email I found by searching our shared account, the restaurant charges, the jewelry store receipt I'd never questioned. I was very calm. I was terrifyingly calm. Most people would have stayed silent. They would have tried to salvage something. They would have suggested couples therapy or taken him back or decided it was partly their fault somehow. I didn't. Over the next 3 days, I did something that 14 years hadn't prepared me for. I became tactical. I hired a divorce lawyer, someone sharp and ruthless, the kind of woman who'd dismantled marriages worse than mine. Her name was Claire, and when I walked into her office with my documentation, she actually smiled. "This is excellent work," she said, scrolling through the timeline I had created. "You've got everything dated, everything sourced. You know what you're doing." "I did corporate law for 15 years, I said. "I know how to build a case." "Good," she said, because your husband is about to learn that there's a significant difference between someone who loves him and someone who is willing to take him apart. The divorce took 14 months. 14 months. Exactly 1 year for every year I'd been married. Marcus tried to negotiate. He wanted to stay in the house. He wanted me to agree to a simplified dissolution to avoid court costs. He wanted to keep the firm, the one I'd helped him build in those first 5 years, when I was working full-time and supporting us both, while he took contracts that barely broke even. I said no to every offer. I didn't do it out of anger, though I was angry. I did it out of something clearer than anger. Understanding. I understood, finally, that he didn't respect me, that he never had, that he'd simply gotten comfortable, and when comfort wasn't enough anymore, he'd found someone else who made him feel alive. I couldn't change his character. I couldn't make him understand what he'd done, but I could make sure he understood the consequences. We went to court 3 times. By the 3rd time, the judge knew both of us by name. I got the house. I got 60% of the firm's valuation, which was substantial, because the firm had become successful, and much of that success was built on the foundation I'd helped create. I got his retirement accounts. I got a settlement large enough that I didn't have to work if I didn't want to. Jasmine was gone by month 8. She met Marcus in his temporary apartment. He was out of the house by then. And apparently, it lasted about as long as these things usually do when they're built entirely on affair energy. He tried to call me during that breakup. I didn't pick up. By the time the divorce was finalized, Marcus had sold his share of the firm to his business partner. He'd moved to Colorado. He'd started a new company. He'd essentially rebuilt his entire life, trying to escape the consequences of the one he'd destroyed. Some betrayals don't heal. They change you. 3 years have passed since that Tuesday in August. 3 years since coffee stained my blouse, and my entire understanding of my marriage shattered simultaneously. I'm not going to tell you I'm happier now. That's not what this story is about. Happiness feels like a small word for something this complicated. I'm different. I'm more aware. I'm less willing to accept the slow death of indifference. I'm more willing to walk away from things that don't serve me. I finished my master's degree. I started a new practice, consulting work mostly, helping women navigate complex divorce settlements. I travel. I sleep better. I laugh at things that aren't funny. I cry at things that don't matter. I'm alive in ways that I'd forgotten how to be. The house is different now, too. I've renovated it. Got rid of the things that felt like his. Redecorated the bedroom. Made it mine in a way it never was before. Sometimes I stand in the kitchen in the morning and I'm amazed that I get to be alone here. That there's no one to apologize to. No one to wonder about. Marcus reached out once about 2 years after the divorce. He said he'd made mistakes. He said he missed me. He said he'd been in therapy, and he understood now what he'd done. I didn't respond. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. The last thing I heard about him was that he'd married again. Jasmine was long gone by then. She'd moved to LA, works in production, is living the life she probably always wanted. Good for her. She learned a valuable lesson at a young age, that the attention of a man who's already promised himself to someone else is never a gift. It's a debt you'll eventually have to repay. If I could go back to that Tuesday in August and tell myself something, I think I'd say this. The thing that breaks you is rarely the betrayal itself. It's the moment you realize you already knew. It's the moment you understand that you chose not to see what was right in front of you. And it's in that moment, the moment you stop choosing blindness, that everything changes. I chose to see. I chose to act. I chose not to accept the slow death of my own life in favor of maintaining someone else's comfort. And when the coffee hit my chest and I heard her say his name, I finally chose myself. That was the real moment everything changed.